Hi, folks. It's Bob Bjorn, and I'm going to today talk about the 8-bar blues. If you're a little tired of playing that 12-bar blues over and over again, here's a nice alternative. Actually, this makes a fun thing to just sit with your guitar and improvise. I'm going to take a basic chord progression, the 8-bar blues, and you'll see it up on the screen. There's going to be four of them. The most basic one would be something like being in the key of A, two measures of A, a measure of D, the 4 chord, and turn it into a minor, and then go A, F sharp, B, E, A. Those are all 2 beats apiece, and then an E. So that's a very basic way of playing it. I'm actually going to take the third one, you'll see, and it's going to be this. One measure of an A chord, one measure of an A 7th chord, one measure of a D 7th chord, one measure of a D sharp diminished 7th chord, and then 2 beats each. A7, F sharp 7, B7, E7, A7, D7, A7, E7. So all those chords at the end from halfway through are going to be 2 beats each. A7, F sharp 7, B7, E7, A7, D7, A7, E7. Let me talk about that place in the middle there. It's A7, F sharp 7, B7, E7, A. Now what that is, it's chords right from the circle of fifths. You could go to my lesson on the circle of fifths, which explained this better. But I'm in the key of A. And what leads to A? Well, E7, its 5 chord, leads to A. What leads to E7? Well, it's 5 chord, B7. What leads to B7? Well, it's 5 chord, F sharp 7. These chords sound good together because each of them leads to the next chord. And then back to A. If you notice when I'm playing this, it has kind of this old-timey feeling, ragtime piano or whatever. You're guessing right, because in that era, probably the teens up until the 40s, there was a lot of this circle of fifths chord progressions where they did that. One chord to another from the circle of fifths, so that kind of gives it that flavor. So some of the things you can do are, I'm going to first turn all these major chords into 7th chords. That always gives a song, a bluesier sound. I'm going to turn them into 7ths. And if we can turn something into a 7th, we can also turn it into a 9th, because a 9th is just a fancy 7th. For example, when I come up to the D7, I can make it D 9th. D 9th is just D7 with 9th added. It's just a fancier D7 chord. Another thing, here's your standard diminished chord, a little parallelogram. You should know one of its characteristics, it repeats itself every 4 frets. I'm going to do that. I'm also going to play a diminished 7 bar chord, which is not hard to play. If you take your D7 bar chord and put your second finger on the 5th string, you've got a diminished chord, and I'm going to call this D sharp diminished, because it actually has 4 different names. So I'm going to actually be doing this progression. If you want to find a good example of this being used, Nina Simone in 1965, I believe she's in B flat though, 1 fret higher. She did a great old standard called Trouble in Mine, and I'm kind of using the progression she does somewhat there. Also, Howlin' Wolf, Sitting on Top of the World, although he does a curious thing and he adds a little extra bar in there, makes a 9-bar blues out of it, which is something. But Howlin' Wolf, Sitting on Top of the World, I believe in the key of A, uses something similar to this, but it has an extra bar near the end. But anyways, the idea is to look at this progression and just make up your own things on it by juggling around some of these ideas. For example, what I'm going to do, I'm going to, instead of playing an A bar chord, I'm going to play this A here and add the high A on here. after playing this A, to go to A7, I'm just going to do this. So I've got, here's a D7. And by changing one note or adding one note, I can make it diminished. And a diminished repeats. I'm on an A7 next, and I got to go to F sharp 7. I'll walk right down. See? A7 leads to B7, B7 leads to E7, E7 leads back to A7. Now at the end we have the classic turnaround of blues. The 1, 4, 1, 5. Now I can play that in various ways. I can go A7, D7, A7, E9th. Or A7, D7, A7, E7 sharp 9, the Jimi Hendrix chord. Or even cooler, I can make that 5 chord at the end an augmented chord. E augmented. Stevie Ray Vaughan does that in a few things. As a matter of fact, there are some blues, I think, Stevie Ray Vaughan, where he actually starts off with that. The 5 chord of the key being played is an augmented. So I might make my turnaround at the end. Okay. Another thing I'll do, I'm just going to demonstrate so many things in a minute. Instead of actually playing the turnaround chords, A, D, A, E, I'm going to play the bass notes of them. A, D, A, and then I'll play the chord. Okay, so remember, you can turn 7s into 9s. The diminished chord repeats itself every 4 frets. Okay, so let me just play a bit on this. I'm going to use my fingers, but it's just for the sound of it, but you can play any way you want. I'm not using any particular finger picking pattern. That's an A9th at the end. This looks like a diminished chord played 1 string higher. That's an A ninth chord. it doesn't have an A in it. You have to use what I call an assumed root, where you find the A by the note that's underneath your little finger. But I ended with that A ninth at the end there. So I just threw together a bunch of those things. I might not have addressed this chord. If you take a D7 chord and add the root in as you move it, you have a movable 7th chord. It's kind of cool. It's got nice voicing. I think I went A7 right down to F sharp 7. Another thing I did, I played an A, and I played some open strings in the middle of the guitar. You might say, what the heck is that? That's actually kind of an A ninth. It looks like a G chord with A in the bass, but it's basically an A ninth or A 13th. Well, it's A, let's see, I got a G in it, an A, a C sharp, a B. It's actually just kind of an A ninth chord, but I did this move. And here I did a similar thing. This is an A 6th or A 13th, probably A 6th, and I moved down to what looks like a G chord. That bears a little explaining. That's not another chord. It's actually A 13 itself would be A, C sharp, E, G, B, D, F sharp, 7 notes in A 13th. I'm actually playing A 13th with 2 different chords, but because I'm keeping the A bass note, this move is playing 1 chord with 2 different chords. This whole thing totals an A 13th. I can take any 7th chord and make it a 9th, and I can take any 9th chord and make it 11th, so I can take any 11th chord and make it a 13th. So where E7 shows up in this, I can play A 13th. So, and let's see, the other thing I did again, I used a diminished chord repeated. I just threw them some basic things from the blues scale, A blues scale, in between the chords. You might strike a chord and do a lick. Something like that. But this is a fun thing to just sit around. I went through that rather quickly. I would take maybe a more leisurely tempo and just try to mix and match these things. Since you have no one, a drummer or bass player, keeping you in pace, you could just do it very randomly and experiment as you go along and just try to mix and match some of these things. So that's an 8-bar blues. Some of the things you might want to look into is my video about the circle of fifths. That'll help understand this business. And look at my 4-part video on the 12-bar blues, or the blues in particular. I really enjoy doing these and getting some nice response. If you really like some of these things, I would not be adverse to you sending a few bucks to my PayPal. Unfortunately, musicians, my living has gone downhill with COVID, but I'm back out working again. But it's encouraging to have some income from this stuff to make me want to do even more. Also, look for my book, The Complete Guitar Player, Bob Pjorn, The Complete Guitar Player. You can send to my address, Bob Pjorn, 16 Clymer Street, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'll put that up there. Or as far as my PayPal, just Pjorn@roadrunner.com. And like I said, I do these because I've been teaching, going on 60 years, and I love teaching and passing on information, but it's always nice to get some financial reward. And it is encouraging to have income coming from these. It makes me want to do more things. So feel free to add some criticisms or comments, or feel free also to send me a note with maybe some ideas about some other videos you'd like to see. But anyways, this is the 8-bar blues, and it's a fun thing to just sit around and noodle around yourself on your guitar. And so give it a try. So this is Bob Pjorn. Thank you.